Her victory was unforeseen, not by the judges in their crisp jackets, nor by the audience with their fancy leashes and perfectly groomed dogs. Least of all by Grant Mollery, a celebrated dog show judge famous for his stringent criteria and inflexible views on who deserved a place in the rarefied world of canine competition. Yet there stood Harper Quinn in the middle of the ring, shoulders back, a hand resting on the head of a poised, attentive German shepherd named Valor. At 60, she didn't fit the profile of a competitor, looking more like someone who had strayed in from a completely different existence, one defined by silence, scars, and the will to survive. No one present understood what she had overcome to be there. No one, that is, except a 10-year-old girl named Maya and the dog that had rescued her on more than one occasion. This tale was not merely about winning. It was about recovery, devotion, and the unbreakable connection forged in darkness and proven in fire. Well before she set foot in that ring, Harper Quinn had endured an entirely different sort of battlefield. For more than 2 decades, she had served as a combat medic in the U.S. Army, mending the injuries of wounded soldiers in the most harrowing conditions conceivable, under enemy fire, amidst dust storms, and in the deep of night. She had witnessed scenes most could not begin to imagine, and the memory of every scar, every cry, every last breath of the fallen was etched into her very being. When her final tour of duty concluded, so too did the version of Harper who had once laughed freely and trusted without hesitation. Honorably discharged at 54, she came back to her rural Oregon hometown in search of tranquility. What she discovered, however, was a silence that resounded too loudly and shadows that stirred to life after sunset. The nightmares were not long in returning, and neither were the panic attacks. The constriction in her chest, the cold perspiration, the abrupt flashbacks to sirens, shrapnel, and screams became her reality. She stayed away from crowds, noisy environments, and anything that could act as a trigger. It was on one of her directionless drives on the town's periphery that she saw him, a stray German shepherd, drenched by rain, limping from a previous injury, and lying near a flooded ditch. His ribs were visible through his tangled fur. His eyes were weary yet watchful, wary, and wounded. The way he held his ground as she neared told her he had faced his own form of warfare. She posed no questions. She didn't have to. Opening the back of her truck, she said gently, "You're not going to die out here. Not today." He entered without making a sound. She called him Valor. She was unaware of it at the time, but this broken dog would grow to be the single constant in her life and the start of something she believed she had lost for good: hope. Initially, their world consisted only of the two of them, Harper and Valor, sharing peaceful days and even more tranquil nights. They did not share a common language, but their understanding was mutual. To Valor, Harper's silence was not a void, and to Harper, Valor's stillness was not passivity. They established a rhythm together that only fellow survivors can comprehend. Then came Maya. Harper's 10-year-old granddaughter showed up with a suitcase too large for her small build and eyes that had witnessed more than a child ever should. Her mother, Harper's daughter, had died unexpectedly, leaving Maya with nowhere else to turn. She came to reside with a grandmother she hardly knew and a dog she'd never seen. But a shared sorrow creates an instant connection. It wasn't long before Maya was nestling beside Valor, her head on his flank as if he were the embodiment of safety. And Valor, seemingly sensing the burden the child shouldered, remained faithfully by her side. Maya was quiet at first, but she expressed herself through drawing. Her sketchbooks filled with depictions of Valor, running, sleeping, observing. On occasion, she would draw Harper as well, but always from the back, as if she couldn't bring herself to face her on the page. One evening, after Harper awoke from a nightmare, trembling and covered in sweat, Maya entered her room, barefoot, holding her sketchbook. "You were crying," the child stated softly. "I heard you." Harper truly looked at Maya then, not just at the child, but at the sorrow behind her youthful eyes. She had already lost her mother. What kind of world would it be if she also lost the only person she had left to rely on? Harper could not allow herself to fall apart. Not now. For Maya's sake, if not for her own, she had to keep fighting. She needed to find a way back. Harper's first instinct was to say it was nothing. But when Maya presented the sketchbook, revealing a drawing of Harper and Valor huddled together on the floor like a bulwark against the darkness, the words wouldn't come. From that night on, their healing became a shared endeavor. One afternoon, while Harper was sorting through an old storage container, Maya discovered a tattered dog training manual that had once belonged to her mother. Later that evening, Harper found Maya viewing a documentary about service dogs assisting veterans with PTSD. A realization dawned. Perhaps training Valor was about more than just obedience. Perhaps it was a path back to her own self. They began with modest goals, simple commands, and straightforward routines, not for the sake of competition, not yet, but for the purpose of healing. They went for morning walks, prepared simple meals, and trained Valor with quiet perseverance. Maya recorded their progress on video, celebrating each success. Gradually, Harper started to feel present once more, not merely enduring, but truly living. What they shared was not glamorous, but it was genuine. Three fractured hearts learning to beat in unison again. It was Maya who proposed the idea. One evening, as they were sitting on the porch observing Valor chase fireflies, Maya looked at Harper, a new light in her eyes. "Grandma, there's a dog training competition in town next month. I think Valor could win." A small laugh escaped Harper. "He barely listens to me half the time." "But he listens when it matters," Maya countered. "Besides, this isn't just about winning. It's about letting everyone see how incredible he is." Harper paused. The very idea of standing before an audience, beneath harsh lights and intense scrutiny, churned up a tempest of anxiety inside her, echoing the turmoil she had once known on the battlefield. But then she saw Maya, so hopeful, so resolute, so brimming with faith. Maybe this was about more than a competition. Maybe it was an opportunity to recover a piece of herself she had thought was gone forever. "All right," Harper agreed with a nod. "Let's do it." Later that evening, long after Maya was asleep, Harper sat by herself in the kitchen, her hands cupped around a mug of now-cold tea. The notion of competing gnawed at her, a mixture of exhilaration and terror. The crowds, the noise, the lights, all were things she had diligently avoided for years. Her thoughts reeled with memories she fought to suppress. Screams, sirens, the sensation of bloodied gloves. Her chest grew tight, but then she heard Valor's steady breathing at her feet and the sound of Maya's soft snores from the next room. She could not let fear triumph again, not when two other lives depended on her for their strength. She had made it through a war. Surely, she could make it through this arena. This wasn't about winning a prize. It was about taking back control, for her own sake, for Maya's, and for the dog that had never lost faith in her. Their training regimen grew more rigorous. Each morning was dedicated to practicing commands, agility exercises, and obedience sequences. Valor met the challenge with eagerness, and Maya served as their self-appointed coach, offering encouragement and keeping morale high. They faced obstacles. Harper's PTSD would surface without warning, memories surging in like overwhelming waves. But every time, Maya and Valor were there, offering a steady hand and a calming presence. The day of the competition finally came. The arena was alive with activity, dogs barking, people conversing, and announcements echoing from loudspeakers. Harper's heart raced, but she centered her focus on Valor, who stood beside her, alert and prepared. Their performance was flawless. Valor carried out every command with exactitude, and Harper moved with a self-assurance she hadn't experienced in years. When the results were announced, Harper and Valor had secured first place. Tears streamed down Harper's face as she embraced Maya and Valor. This was not simply a victory in a contest. It was a victory over fear, a confirmation of their healing, and the start of a new chapter. While Harper brushed away her tears and Valor nudged her hand, the audience still animated from their performance. A man stood apart near the judge's tent. Outfitted in a costly suede jacket and buffed boots, he offered no applause, his expression unsmiling. His name was Grant Ellison, a prominent breeder and sponsor in the exclusive dog show world. He had observed Valor's performance with great focus, his arms folded and his jaw set. There was something about the dog's movement, the way he seemed to react not to orders, but to pure instinct. It was more than training. It was something profound, something exceptional. As Harper made her way to leave with Maya and Valor, Grant's gaze followed them, sharp and cold. He remained silent, but the gears in his mind were already in motion. Their triumph was short-lived. 2 days following the competition, Harper woke to an unsettling quiet. Valor's customary morning nudge was absent. Her heart pounded as she called his name. Once, twice, no response. She discovered the back door was slightly open, Valor's leash still hanging untouched on the wall. A wave of panic swept over her. "Maya," Harper called, attempting to keep her voice even. But the expression on her granddaughter's face, wide eyes, a quivering lip, revealed that she already knew. They scoured the neighborhood. They distributed flyers, made phone calls, and posted desperate messages on social media, but Valor was gone without a trace. The loss was suffocating. Harper would sit for hours on the porch, gazing at the horizon as if her will alone could bring him back. Her PTSD returned with the force of a storm. Nightmares, cold sweats, the crushing feeling of helplessness. One afternoon, with thunder rumbling in the distance, she collapsed onto the kitchen floor, struggling to breathe. Maya rushed to her side, gripping her shoulders. "Don't disappear, Grandma. Not again." Harper blinked away tears. "I don't know how to do this without him." "Yes, you do," Maya whispered. "You're strong, stronger than anyone I know. And Valor needs you now." It was in that moment, hearing the fear in Maya's voice and remembering Valor pressing against her leg during past panic attacks, that Harper found a new clarity. Someone had taken him. The way the door was left ajar, the absence of any struggle or barking, it wasn't a random event. Then she thought of Grant Ellison. The cold intensity in his eyes as he watched Valor at the competition. The way he had applauded without a smile. A knot formed in her gut. Harper rose to her feet, her heart hammering with fresh determination. She could not fall apart now. Not while Valor might be out there, scared or injured. She owed it to him. She owed it to Maya. This fight was not over. It had only just begun. Without Valor, the house seemed cavernous and empty. Harper constantly replayed that morning in her mind, wondering what she could have done differently, what clues she might have overlooked. She dissected every second like a medic analyzing a failed tree-off. Where had she let him down? The days melded together. Flyers adorned telephone poles. Harper questioned neighbors, went door to door, and checked local shelters. There was nothing. It was as if he had simply evaporated. Maya tried to stay optimistic. Someone will see him. Someone will call, she would murmur each night, her finger tracing a path on the worn map spread across their kitchen table. Harper was less certain. Her intuition insisted this was not a case of a simple lost dog. Valor wasn't a runner. He always returned. This was something different, something planned. Late one night, Harper sat alone, staring at the corkboard she'd assembled, a collage of maps, photos, pins, and notes. No connections emerged. She clenched her fists, her body trembling as another panic attack started to build in her chest. But then she pictured Maya's face from the day Valor vanished. The fear, the sound of her voice saying, "Don't disappear, Grandma." That image anchored her, allowing her to breathe. Harper closed her eyes, casting her mind back to the competition. The people, the sounds, the faces. One face surfaced from the haze, Grant Ellison. He had been there, observing, silent. Too silent. She recalled the expression in his eyes as Valor performed, cold and appraising. Her heart began to pound. That had to be significant. She found the program from the competition. Grant's name appeared as a sponsor. With unsteady hands, Harper dialed the local police. "I need to report a theft," she said. "And I have an idea who took my dog." It wasn't a strong lead, no witnesses, no video evidence, no definitive proof, but it was a starting point. Harper wasn't prepared to surrender. Not on Valor, and not on herself. If she had to revisit every shadow of her past to find him, she would. As Harper laid out her story, Detective Carson listened with focused attention. Her history with PTSD, her bond with Valor, his abrupt disappearance, and her suspicions regarding Grant Ellison. "We don't have a lot to work with," Carson conceded. "But Ellison's name has come up before. He has wealth and influence, enough to make problems go away." Harper gave him everything she had. The flyer, the competition program, the notes from her board, and even a list of questions she'd compiled during sleepless nights. Carson assured her he would investigate. A few silent days went by. Then, a phone call came. "We may have something," Carson reported. An anonymous tip came in about a private property Ellison owns on the outskirts, an old kennel facility. Without hesitation, Harper offered to accompany him. Carson declined. "If he's responsible, we'll need a warrant." We have to proceed by the book. The following 24 hours passed with agonizing slowness. When Carson called again, his tone was somber. We found evidence. Scratch marks on the walls, a leash that was chewed through, traces of blood. No dog, but signs one was held there recently. A wave of despair washed over Harper. "Do you think he's still alive?" she whispered. "I think someone encountered more resistance than they anticipated," Carson replied. "Dogs like Valor don't yield easily, especially when their loyalty lies with someone else." Tears filled Harper's eyes, not of fear, but of rage. Valor hadn't just been taken. He had fought for his freedom. Late that night, Harper stood outside, looking up at the stars. The trauma of war had left her afraid of many things: crowds, silence, even her own thoughts. But her greatest fear now was losing the one creature that had helped her find her way back to herself. She could not, would not, let that happen. The next morning, Carson appeared with new information. "We have footage from a gas station near that property," he said. "It captures Ellison's truck leaving but not coming back. And there's a second vehicle we've traced to a vet clinic just outside of town." Harper's breath hitched. A vet? Maybe Valor was hurt. Maybe someone is trying to help. Carson met her gaze directly. "We're getting close, Harper. Hold on." For the first time in days, Harper felt a flicker of hope. The man who had taken her peace believed he could sever the bond between her and Valor. But he had misjudged what love and survival were capable of. Tucked among oak trees at the town's edge stood the small veterinary clinic. Harper and Detective Carson got there just as the sun was rising. The receptionist seemed surprised but gave a nod when Carson displayed his badge. "He's in the back," she whispered. "A man brought him in 3 days ago. Claimed he found the dog limping by the highway." Harper trailed her down the sterile corridor, her heart thumping so loudly it seemed to block out all other sounds. Every footstep felt like a pilgrimage toward something precious. Then she saw him. Valor was lying in a kennel, his fur matted, one leg wrapped in a bandage, a bruise beneath his eye, but he was alive. The instant their gazes locked, his ears twitched and his body strained to get up despite the pain. Harper fell to her knees. "Hey boy, it's me." Valor emitted a soft whine, his tail thumping weakly. The moment the latch was released, he stumbled into her embrace, leaning his weight against her chest as if to confirm she was real. She threw her arms around him, burying her face in his fur as tears streamed down, dampening his coat. "I'm so sorry," she murmured. "I should have kept you safer." But Valor held no blame for her. He never had. Detective Carson stood quietly a short distance away, allowing them their moment. This was more than a reunion. It was a revival. Afterward, while the veterinarian detailed Valor's condition, minor fractures, dehydration, and trauma from mistreatment, Harper's hands trembled, but her voice remained firm. "Whatever he needs, we'll provide it. He's coming home." On the drive back, Maya was waiting on the porch, her eyes wide with anticipation. When the truck arrived and Valor emerged, stiff but on his feet, Maya broke into tears. She ran to him, hugging him close as he licked her face, whining with happiness. Harper took in the scene, overcome with emotion. She had come so close to surrendering to fear, to letting the darkness consume her again. But not this time. This time, she had stood her ground and won. The days that came after marked a clear shift. The nightmares still visited, but Harper no longer woke up gasping for air. Valor was always there, his head resting on her ankles, a steady and reassuring presence. When she went into town, people no longer whispered or stared. They stopped her to say, "I saw your story on the news," or simply, "You're very brave." She didn't feel brave, but she did feel lighter. Maya went back to her drawings, which were now filled with more color and fewer shadows. The little girl who had once huddled silently beside her grandmother now ran ahead with laughter, Valor trotting at her heels. They had weathered the storm. One afternoon, Harper found herself standing at the border of the old pasture behind their house. Maya had fastened a ribbon to Valor's collar, a faded yellow one from her mother's old things. It danced in the wind as he sat attentively by Harper's side, watching butterflies. "I thought I'd lost everything after the war," Harper said quietly. She glanced down at the dog who had guided her through every panic attack and haunting memory, then at the girl who still held the bright spark of a mother taken too soon. Or maybe this is where everything starts. She didn't require a show ring or an award. She didn't need anyone's permission to heal. The connection between her, Valor, and Maya was more than just recovery. It was a rebirth. So, they created something new. A training circle in their backyard, a few veterans from the area, dogs that had been cast aside, and people who had once been broken. And with each passing day, Harper stood a bit taller, her voice grew a little stronger, and her sleep became a little more peaceful. Because healing, she came to understand, is not about erasing what happened. It's about writing a better story in its place. Harper had once thought her story was over, finished by the war, her wounds too deep to ever heal. Yet healing came to her in the most unforeseen form, on 4 legs, with unwavering eyes and a devoted heart. With Valor and Maya beside her, she didn't just endure, she truly lived once more. For anyone who carries unseen wounds, hold on to this. Healing isn't about forgetting what came before. It's about building something stronger because of it. Sometimes, all you need is a single reason to try again.